I'm a big fan of real estate and tech kind of coming together to win in real estate by just utilizing some pretty basic tech. Because most people in real estate are like anti-tech. So Nate would drive into Lancaster and he would pick up the rent in cash at the corner of East New Street and Queen or whatever. And the guy would pay cash when he wanted to pay, in cash at wherever he wanted to pay. I would go to these meetups, and by the way, I highly recommend this. I would write down every word I didn't know. And all of a sudden, this Doberman Pinscher comes out of nowhere. And I'm inches from, I wouldn't even have a nose anymore. I mean, just, up on there.
Welcome back to the Investor Unite podcast, where we talk all things real estate, business, and entrepreneurship.
If you are looking to ignite your real estate investing, then join us at Investors Unite. And on today's podcast, we got Chad. Hey, Chad.
What's
How's
up?
it going, Chad?
Chad is a very successful real estate investor here in Central PA, but he's done numerous things, all over the country. So I'd love to dive into your story, and you are such like a high energy person. I absolutely love it. So bring this podcast to life. And you do have your own podcast, so do you want to shout that out real quick?
Yeah, Real Estate Hackers is where we record a bunch of content. Okay. We also do a bunch of meetups. I think about Real Estate Hackers as like kind of like a lifetime media brand for us. Okay. So we have Instagram. We have a bunch of stuff kind of under Real Estate Hackers. Yeah. And we own the URL, realestatehackers.com. So we have kind of like a long-term vision of where that can kind of go.
Nice.
And I think we're actually kind of early days of where that is. It's a URL I kind of like. Yeah. I'm a big fan of real estate and tech kind of coming together.
Yeah. Completely.
So
how do you, just going off that a little bit, how do you feel about the whole like AI being incorporated into real estate?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is going to be a bit, I don't know if controversial is the word, but you expect to hear?
Sure.
So look, I think actually AI, look, the idea of AI is basically using tech to help us make better decisions. Hey, that's been going on for a couple decades now.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, everyone's like, totally almost
it's blowing it up because of ChatGPT.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, and I just think that, in general, real estate was about a decade behind most other industries and verticals.
Okay.
And what you kind of see in tech is, if you kind of think about different verticals got disrupted by tech in different waves. So early on, think about things like media. As consumption moved from the TV to a computer, media became kind of like one of the first waves to be disrupted.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you had retail, right? As things kind of started to move towards e-commerce. Yep. Then you start moving towards like travel and people using apps to book things. And so real estate was kind of like behind the wave. And so, when I hear about AI and real estate, I think to myself, well, hold on a sec. Like some of the basic innovations in tech haven't even hit real estate yet. Yeah. And so I've been kind of obsessed the last 5 to 10 years of, you don't have to be this crazy forerunner in technology to win in real estate by just utilizing some pretty basic tech. Because most people in real estate are like anti-tech.
Yeah. A lot of the people we talk to, sellers, whatnot, they're all 60, 70 years old. Yeah. They don't even have an iPhone yet. Yeah. So, no, you're right. In that way, there's so far behind versus many other industries.
Yeah, and I don't know why it is. I mean, one reason is that most people that start really creating wealth in real estate and doing some interesting things are usually a little bit older. Yeah. And so I think that for some reason, maybe that's part of it.
It's just not matching up.
Right. Like people in their 20s, and you guys are young, but most people in their 20s are not in their 20s in real estate, cranking away. Usually it's something they kind of get into in your 40s. You've made some money, then you kind of transition in real estate. Yeah. And to me, that's one reason why it's just kind of, also I find that real estate people are very like hands-on, so some of my favorite folks who are wildly successful, they'd much rather go fix drywall than they would like figure out how a mobile app can change their business.
Yeah. Are you using any AI in your business right now?
Are we using any AI in our business right now? It's a good question. No. We've created some really cool apps that I wouldn't call like AI. I'll give you an example of the coolest app we made that I really like. So, filing an eviction in Pennsylvania. Have you guys ever done that?
We have one time.
Okay, so
you
have some idea?
Yeah.
Did you like literally you went to the courthouse and you got the thing? Okay, so this is good. This will resonate. So about 3-4 years ago, we were running a management company.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll get into this more, but we were managing a lot of properties all over the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So we were filing a lot of evictions.
Yeah.
And in Pennsylvania, there's this weird thing where each court has different fees.
Okay.
And even finding where to file is kind of tricky. And then when you go to file, it's like the most antiquated thing. You actually have to, like, by paper, fill this out. And then you walk into the local magistrate and you hand them the filing. And you have to ask them how much it's going to be. And it's just like, that's not...
It's a difficult process.
Yeah.
It's just not smooth.
Right.
Yeah.
So we basically digitized the whole thing. So we took the 520 magistrate courts. We kind of literally geo-fenced each of theirs into an actual address-by-address location. Build a database behind it of all the different fees with an algorithm.
Yep.
So basically, the end result is this thing called CourtZip, where you go in, you put in your address, you fill in a couple fields, you hit submit, and the thing gets filed at the courthouse for you.
Oh, wow.
This guy's a genius.
Yeah.
So is it just like your company just uses it or anyone can
No,
use
so it's
it?
open. So what we did was for the first year, our prime management company used it to kind of get the flow worked out.
Yeah.
Basically, our prime managers were like not filing properly is what happened because you'd file at the wrong courthouse because you didn't know.
Yeah.
And then you'd end up at court and they'd be like, hey, sorry, it's like down the street. You know, so I was like, this makes no sense. So we basically built the tech. The first year, only our management company used it.
Okay.
And then we opened it up. And so now there's, tons of people use it all the time.
Is it like a subscription based?
No, so it's by use. So it's like $20 to file.
Gotcha.
And then the other cool part is CourtZip will actually represent you in court if you don't want to have to go.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then all the fees get billed to the tenant. So, the kind of weird thing is like 85% of tenants actually pay these things off.
Oh, really?
Well, then ours paid our fee.
No.
No?
Oh, you mean...
The tenant.
No, they asked if we wanted them to, and we just said no. Like, we just want them out of the property.
Okay. But the most, like 85% of tenants will actually pay before being locked out.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so what you can do is, you can, if you hire a lawyer, if you hire, a service like CourtZip, you can actually bill the tenant for that service.
Oh, my.
And so what it does, look, and this is just one example, and so the reason why I kind of don't love the whole AI term is like, by its definition, CourtZip's not really AI, right? It's a little more simplified than that. But like, man, what a great, I think it's great.
It's super convenient.
Yeah.
Nice tool to use.
Exactly.
So
So
property management companies, that'd make it so much easier for everybody.
Yeah. So I think real estate's like a 5 to 10 years away. I mean, we don't even need AI yet.
Yeah.
Just the most basic stuff is still, there's still things that are kind of like at its fingertips.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't ready for that. I didn't know about that.
I know, we weren't even supposed to talk about that. Yeah.
Shout out CourtZip.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah. So it's live.
check it out if you own some property.
Yeah, it's used by a bunch of companies, and we talk about ourselves as being like into like real estate. We love entrepreneurs. We love like creating businesses that basically a problem that we had.
Yeah.
And I'll probably explain a couple of those today. We love like kind of creating that and seeing if we can like turn it into something that other people can use.
Right.
And then, real estate. So it's like real estate, entrepreneurship, and tech is kind of like the ecosystem we live in.
Yeah. This will make it all work together.
Yeah.
You're a big like systems guy, just putting the systems together.
I am. Yes. Yeah, so actually, I majored in systems engineering.
Oh, wow.
That makes sense.
And so I never thought this is where I was going. But yeah, I am really obsessed with like, how do you take a problem, then how do you create a system, but not how do we take 5 years to create the system?
Yeah.
Like, how can we create a system that we can launch in like a week or 4 weeks or 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Get something out in the wild.
Right.
And then just like crazy iteration of that system.
Yeah.
If it's working, right? If we're like onto something and if clients, and if it's not working, we'll just move on, So we've
not a big deal. You didn't spend too much time wasted on that.
We've probably created like 7 or 8 things over the last decade. Some we like shelved after 3-4 months, and others are like full-blown companies that are growing like crazy. So.
That's awesome.
I'd love to run an idea by you.
Yeah.
After this podcast.
Oh.
A little off air.
Come on, you can't just.
No, trust me, it's been in the works for like over a year.
Yeah.
Not ready to expose it yet.
All right, well, we talk about it, and then if it's cool, and when you're ready, we can come back and do like.
Part
Absolutely.
2 for sure.
So, all right, you've done a lot. Let's start at the beginning. Right?
Yeah.
So, you went to college.
Yeah.
Right? Got the systems engineering degree. How'd you end up in real estate?
Didn't even know how to spell real estate. Yeah. So my parents were school teachers. This was definitely not the path they envisioned. I spent about 8 years or so in tech. I worked for a company called advertising.com. And I joined the company, and this is one piece of advice I give people all the time. Look, if you are entrepreneurial, you can choose a job that you can actually learn from.
Yeah.
Like most people choose a job where it's like, what pays me the most? I was kind of against that idea. I was
Not
like,
really increasing your skill level.
Yeah, I was like, let's pick a job out that I can learn from the people. And in particular, the owner of that company, the guy who founded it, was very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
He was actually a systems engineering grad too, and I was like, man, I can learn from this guy. Yeah. And
that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So I mean, it turned out digital advertising was a great front to get into. The industry was growing like crazy.
Yeah.
And so I started to accumulate some money. And this is like 2012. And so my best friend from high school, his name's Nate, we were actually, this is a good story. We were going to a bachelor party.
Okay.
And so we met, I was living in Baltimore. We met in like Lancaster area.
Yeah.
And took the turnpike from Lancaster to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So you can imagine like anyone's on that trip.
3.5 hour drive.
Yeah, and there's not much going on, right?
Yeah.
It's
Just straight shot. Yeah. See nothing but just mountains on the side.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Yeah, so within about 15 minutes, Nate said, hey, this is like 2012. I had something to run by you. He was a math teacher at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, I think we should buy an investment property. And I was like, I don't even know, like,
Anything
like
about
how
it.
do you buy an investment property?
Yeah.
Like how does that even work?
Yeah.
And, at the time, buying an investment property was almost like a curse word. I mean, 2012, you're coming right out of the crisis, right? And but he had 3 hours to convince me. By the time we got to Pittsburgh, I was like, look, let's buy a property together.
It's good as salesman.
Yeah. And the funny thing is he's actually not the salesman in the partnership. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I was like, look, the idea was we would buy maybe we'd try to buy one a year.
Yeah.
And maybe after a decade, we might own 10 properties. I still had the original kind of model set up. And I was like, look, this could be interesting after 10 years. We own 10 propities and
See where it goes.
yeah, we own some money. Yeah. And so we did that. We bought the first one. We still own it today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right on East New Street in Lancaster. Right
That was
by
back in 2012, right?
Yeah. It's crazy. Oh man, I mean, it just shows how real estate can change your life. So we bought that, and I think we paid like $85,000 for it.
Okay.
Wow.
I think we put down like 20%. We paid like $25,000 down.
Yeah.
I think that property today is like worth. You guys would have probably better than me, $250 or something crazy.
Wow.
So great appreciation. It's pretty well broken even, or maybe cash flow on the way.
Yeah.
But after we bought the first one, the plan was we'll wait a year, right?
Yeah.
I got home that night, and I don't know, I couldn't sleep.
Caught the real estate bug.
You got the itch.
Yeah, I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
I could not sleep, and I remember I woke up. I didn't even go to sleep. I was like midnight, and I was like, I can't sleep. And I jumped on the MLS, and I just started looking up properties.
Yeah.
And I emailed Nate. I was like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? And he emailed me back, in the morning. He was sleeping, and he was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Wait, did you have your license?
No, Nate got his.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was kind of inside of his. I don't even know if he had his license at the time. Someone gave us their
the
login.
access.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
But yeah. So then we started to. We bought one. We bought another one. Then we learned about tax sales.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So then we would go into a tax sale, and we would get a list of like 80 properties that Reading was going to be selling on Monday.
Yeah.
And I would take the weekend with Nate, and we would basically try to break into as many as possible.
Right.
I don't necessarily.
That's the fun part of real
Yeah, I don't know
estate.
if I suggest this or not, but yeah, you're trying to get in because you're trying to figure out like what's actually going on here.
Yeah.
Of course.
And hopefully you don't catch like any dogs in there or crazy people. Like some really wild things happen.
Squatters or
Yeah. I mean, we'd pay someone $5 to less in. Because what you're getting is like inside access that maybe someone else doesn't have.
Of course.
Right,
Yep.
right.
And so we'd look at 80 properties, and then on Monday we'd buy like one.
Yeah.
But we'd buy it for like $5,000.
So it's a steal.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolute steal.
Yeah. And so now you had to pay cash,
Yep.
exact cash. And so we would, I'll never forget this. So we didn't have that much money.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew we were onto something. I knew it was like, man, these things are this isn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to like put every last dollar I had into real estate.
Buy as many as you can.
Yeah. And so I would go to the bank and I would literally again, this is not how you do it, but this is what I did.
Sure.
So I would go and I would take out whatever cash I had in my checking account in like increments of 10s, 20s, and 100s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I'd go to the tax sale and I'd know what I had there in like literally in my backpack.
Yeah.
And then we'd bid. And then if we want, and like what most human beings do is get like, in increments of like $5,000 or $10,000, like checks basically, cashier's checks from the bank. But not us. We had cash. And so the way it worked at some of these anyway back in the day was they wouldn't move to the next property until you actually paid.
Okay.
Now most of these people are coming in. They, here's my cashier's checks, and we move on.
Right.
What do? We roll up with our backpack and we get out, and we're going through literally like 20s and 10s and 5s. And I'll never forget, we bought one at one of the Lancaster sale, and we bought a second one. And I'll never forget this audible groan when people realized we bought another one, because there was like a 10-minute wait while we had to go through the 20s and 10s. They must have realized, like, by the way, bringing a backpack of cash is like probably not the safest idea.
I was thinking about that. I was like, were there other people with backpacks and cash too?
No. There's like way better ways now. I think they've even evolved it where you can come back and close like later that day and stuff. Yeah. So they've gotten a little smarter, but
made it more efficient.
But yeah, so we started to acquire these things quickly. I mean, the term BRRRR didn't exist back then. But that's basically what we were doing. We were basically buying in cash from a tax sale. We'd fix it up. I had a good job. So banks liked us. So we'd refi out. And it was like, I feel like we were playing Monopoly. It was like, man, I mean,
right.
I always say, like, we weren't acquiring Broadway, or Boardwalk or whatever. We were getting, like, if you ever play, we were playing like the Purples. But the Purples can make you some money.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
Working away from the purples to the pinks, to the oranges, to the reds, to the yellows, and then
So we, a lot of C-class housing.
Yeah.
And then what happened was we were self-managing it, and it was just becoming more and more real estate to manage.
Yeah.
And so Nate decided to leave teaching and to get into basically property management. And he basically pitched me again, saying, hey, we should start a management company.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, we talked about it, and I never really gave a decision, but I'll never forget the next day he texted me and like a URL, and it was like slighthousegroup.com.
Oh, you already bought the domain?
And I was like, what the, not even a domain, there was a website live.
The whole website?
Like, we were live. And I was like,
shoot.
I was like, what?
You spent all night just creating this thing.
I don't know. I mean, I was like, I never really gave the okay here, I guess, but I was like, all right, I guess we're,
See how it goes.
And, at the time, I knew a lot about digital advertising, so I was able to kind of quickly optimize the site. And before long, we're getting leads coming in.
Wow.
And what I would do is I would take the leads for new management clients.
Yeah.
So at the time, Nate was still basically teaching during the day. So he was a teacher in the day. He hadn't even left his job yet. So he would teach, and I would take leads. And what I would do is I would be like in Chicago, and I'd be meeting with like an agency who represented Wendy's. Okay. And our meeting might be like, 11 to noon. And I'd see a lead come in, and so when we got out of the meeting, I would jump into a conference room, pretend like I had like another call to take, close the conference room door, and I would take this lead of like a new potential owner.
Yeah.
And I'd jump on the phone. It literally, they had no idea I was in Chicago. Right. And they would say, hey, I have this property I need managed. Can you come out? And I was like, yep, we can be out this afternoon. Or like maybe like 4 o'clock. They're like, man, you can come out that fast. That's amazing. Sure, give us the address. And then I throw it in the calendar, and then Nate would end his day at 3, and all of a sudden there'd be like...
so it's perfect timing.
Yeah, so he would go leave his job. And
we can relate to that.
And then he would jump, and he would drive straight to the appointment.
Yeah.
Little did this person know, this was all smoke and mirrors at first, And then he'd close the deal, and then we started managing it. And, it was wild. It's just super early days. But, I'm so... I love it when people... I get really excited when people are like willing to be scrappy early on. It's usually like a really good sign. Because willing to be scrappy early on, that's usually a good sign of things to come.
Okay.
Like you have that desire. Like almost every successful person I know early on in their career, and even as their career goes on, they had these great stories of being scrappy. Yeah. So when I see people who are scrappy, I like them drawn to. Like you guys are scrappy. You guys are
I appreciate it.
We're not the cleanest at all.
Scrappy's like I'd rather someone scrappy because that like shows you're able to kind of
work around the issues.
Because look, I mean, you're early on. You don't have, when you're 10 years in, you have a brand, and you've been doing this for a long time, and you have a team.
Yeah, in the beginning, you got to hustle it.
Yeah, you got to make up for not having some of this stuff. So.
Oh, absolutely. So you kind of just flew through that. So I want to just go back to your very first property. Where are some of finding contractors? How did you know how much rehab was going to cost on these properties?
Oh, we didn't know anything.
You were just buying these and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I mean the tenant. Everyone says manage your tenant. No, the tenant managed us. So the tenant's rules for us was you pick up rent on Friday night, And so Nate would drive into Lancaster, and he would pick up the rent in cash at the corner of East New Street and Queen or whatever. And the guy would pay cash when he wanted to pay, in cash at wherever he wanted to pay. And I mean, look, we didn't know anything.
You're just doing what you could.
Yeah, I mean, how we found contractors? Gosh, I don't even know. I think we used Craigslist back then.
No way.
You guys probably don't know what that is. It's a site that
Of course
you
I know what
yeah,
Craigslist is.
yeah.
Get out of here. It's the old Facebook.
We never used that for
marketplace.
contractors.
Yeah, I mean, we would go on Craigslist, and what else would we do? I mean, Nate did some of the work himself. And then we'd ask some of our friends. We did have friends in real estate.
right.
And I started going to meetups pretty early on.
Yeah.
And I would just, I would talk to anyone. I mean, if you were in real estate, I would talk to you. And I would just, start accumulating business cards. And
So how big was your portfolio at this point when you started your property management company?
I think we probably had like 15 units is what happened.
Wow. Okay.
And then we were like, should we hire a management company? We actually interviewed some others.
Yeah.
And that's when we decided to start a management company. But I remember I went into the Lancaster meetup, one of my first ever times. And I'll never forget. Someone says, so Chad, like, what do you do in real estate? And I was like, what are my options? I didn't know. I mean, like I knew so little.
I'm just in real estate.
Yeah, like give me like the 5, A, B, C, D. Yeah, give me multiple choice here.
Yeah.
They were like, well, do you do wholesale? And I was like, I don't know what wholesaling is. Can you define that? I mean,
No, I don't do that one.
no, don't do. We don't sell stuff, so we don't wholesale.
Yeah.
Do you flip? And I was like, no, it sounds like flipping is selling. We don't sell.
Like, we fix them up, but we don't sell it.
Yeah, and they're like, well, you better figure out what you do. And I was like, yeah, I'm still working on it.
I just own something.
Yeah. And I also remember I would go to these meetups, and by the way, I highly recommend this. I would write down every word I didn't know.
Okay. Yeah.
I think some people they're like too proud to do this, but like you go to a meetup, and they're talking about stuff you might not know, and so I would write down every word I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I'd go home because back then you didn't even smartphones didn't exist yet.
Right.
I'd go home, and I'd Google every word I didn't know, and I'd be like, okay, I'm like trying to learn the vocabulary.
Yeah.
That's smart to do.
Yeah, and so then we started managing other people's properties. Obviously, that started to grow pretty quick.
Yeah.
We started to hire some people. Then Nate came in full time. Eventually, I came in full time.
Yep.
And what year is this?
Like 2016, I guess.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah.
You want to go like how you started building that property management company? Just like some of your marketing tactics.
Yeah. I mean, so look, I am a big believer in meetups. I mean, I still am today.
Right.
I don't go to quite as many as I used to, but I would go to like over 2 meetups a week.
Oh wow.
So you start saying like that means over 100 events I was at every year.
Yeah.
But I did it for like 10 years, so that's like...
And that's just all over Pennsylvania.
Well, first it was Pennsylvania, but then we expanded to New Jersey, so I started going to Trenton meetups.
Jesus.
Oh, wow.
Eventually we were in Maryland,
You're just
then Virginia.
driving all over the place.
Yeah. So any given week I could be anywhere in the Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah.
And so, so that was really good. So just meeting like influential people
Right.
was key to us.
What was kind of like your pitch to them while you were there?
I think early on I became like a really good. This is funny. My wife will disagree with this comment, but when I need to be, I'm a very good listener.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like when it came to like meetups and stuff, I would just listen. Like someone would say, "What do you do?" And I would be like very quick, but before I wanted to give I wanted to ask them what they did first, basically.
Yeah.
I just want to understand who the heck is this person?
Yeah.
Where are they coming from? What do they need? What are their problems?
Yeah.
And I started just kind of accumulating this database of like what people do, what their needs are, where they're trying to go.
Okay.
And then I was like, look, if I can be helpful like in any way, great.
Yeah.
And then on the management company side, our pitch was simple. Like we're the most tech-enabled management company around.
Yeah.
And our rates were super fair. We were around like 7% as a management fee.
That's really good, actually.
Back then people were at like 10, so we were kind of disrupting there.
Yep.
And I said, we're gonna do what we say we're gonna do. And that was about all I needed to say. I mean, most people hate their management company. So even today, management company.
It's pretty easy to
They
sell.
hear 7%, they're like, I'm on board.
Yeah. So we started growing that quickly, and that was exciting. And then the cool part about that was I learned a lot about real estate from managing other people's properties because our clients, I mean all these people who are our clients who would teach me, who knew, they knew more about acquiring real estate than I knew. Sometimes our clients would need to sell in a hurry, so sometimes we would buy their real estate from them.
Oh, wow.
Which was kind of a neat little benefit that we didn't even think would be there.
No, absolutely.
We started doing partnerships where someone was like, "Hey, I'm looking for an investor in this, or I want to jointly buy this together with you."
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. I always tell people like, I really believe having a business and like being in so like the kind of the Robert Kiyosaki, 4 quadrants. Right? You guys,
Yep.
You read the book yet?
Yep.
I didn't read
Of course.
it, though.
Come on.
I know.
You never read that?
I haven't.
Come
read
on.
it.
Out of all the books you read,
I
books you've
know.
read.
Okay, well,
That's on the list.
it's like tonight on the
That's
list.
my homework.
Yeah, your homework on that. But anyway, so 4 quadrants, right? You have employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor, right? And so most people want to. Kind of the point of the book is moving from being employed or self-employed, moving to business owner, investor.
Yeah.
And so my whole thing was you don't have to pick only one. You can actually be a business owner and an investor. And I felt like, and I still believe this today, maybe actually stronger than ever, some of the most successful people have been able to do both.
Okay.
I'll give you a couple examples. I gave this in the talk the other day. Something like Walt Disney.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, was Walt Disney an investor? He's not really known for that, right? He's known for being a business owner.
Right.
Yeah.
But look at all that real estate he bought in Orlando.
Yeah.
That's now worth a lot more than it was before.
Right.
Right? And so he actually used like the combination of the two to actually create something really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it like any of the franchises around here, like McDonald's,
Yeah,
Wendy's, it's all the same thing.
Yep,
They're all
exactly.
real estate companies.
Yep,
at the end of
McDonald's
the
is a
day.
great example.
Yeah.
So when you start thinking about like Marriott is actually an example of this, where they own the real estate and they have a service business that kind of manages the hotels.
Yeah.
And so I loved that. I love that concept of, and I'd always encourage people, if you can find a business and be an investor, and then find a way for these two things to like
Line up.
Intercline.
interact in a way that makes you maybe better at both or more valuable at both.
Yeah.
The image I always show is like a line going away between the two. So you actually have a combination of both. I find it to be like really powerful.
Yeah.
It's amazing from a tax perspective because your business is usually going to have to pay taxes, but can kind of be offset by investing.
Right.
And so you can kind of use the two, or sometimes your business can have tax losses if you do it right. And so you kind of, it gives you more tax
Kind
options.
of balances out a little bit.
Yep. And then you learn a lot. And so I'm a big fan of that. And so we use that. I still use it today. Like we're big fan of owning businesses and owning real estate kind of together.
Does that kind of go along with your, we'll get into this in a little bit, your winery?
It is. Yeah. The winery jumps ahead another 4 or 5
Yeah,
years. But
we'll get to that
yeah,
point.
it's a great example.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're building this property management company. How many employees have you hired? How many units are you managing? Like, how big did you grow this thing?
Yeah, so at peak, we were managing 5,000 properties, 100 employees, pure chaos.
Yep.
You got to remember, like 5,000 units, that means you probably had like 10,000 tenants. We had maybe, 1,300 clients.
Yeah.
Wow.
100 employees. It was crazy.
It's rough.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Rough doesn't even do justice. It was, every day was
Complete
something new.
madness.
And the edge cases that come up at scale in real estate are just some of the weirdest things you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you have any crazy
Yeah, I was
stories from
gonna
this
say.
thing?
I don't even know where to start. My favorite story I always tell is we go into a guy's place. It's a fun story. It's not a bad story. It's a fun story. You go into a guy's place, and in the sink is like clogged, and it's like murky. And by the way, this is an inspection, and the tenant's right there, so he's not like hiding anything.
Yeah.
And in this murky sink that's filled up, there's a turtle.
No way.
Yeah, like a living big ass turtle.
Okay.
Are we allowed to swear? Is this swearing okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
So big turtle.
Yeah.
In sync. And I look, and I was actually there, and I was like, Jimmy, like, what's going on?
Why you got a turtle in your sink?
Guy looks at me and says, well, what'd you want me to do? There's no aquariums allowed on the lease. Where'd you want me to put the turtle? Right? Wow. So right? So our lease says no aquariums. Mm-hmm. So his approach was, well, if I can't have an aquarium, I want my turtle. So I'm going to put the turtle's going to live in my sink.
That's a good way to get around it, I guess.
Yeah.
Jeez. Now you got to start adding that to the lease agreement.
Yeah. Like, okay, no turtles in sink.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So, I mean, but the edge cases got not only crazier, but more stressful, I think, for us.
Yeah.
We felt like we were taking on more liability. And so, so when COVID hit, I decided I'm going to sell this company.
Did you get to a point where you thought it was like almost out of control and like any day now this thing could just completely turn upside down on you?
Yeah, I just didn't see a path towards us truly owning a business with systems and process. It just felt like
it's just too many.
Yeah, I mean, we were working 50, 60, 70. I mean, it was like crazy hour weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was kind of on us. I mean, it was almost like we couldn't quite figure out how to grow enough systems in place to really own a
as you're owning this property management company, you're still trying to increase your rental portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason we got into this was to increase our investment portfolio. And then we weren't even buying any more properties.
Just trying to manage.
All your energy's on
all our energy is on this. It's like, this is all like kind of been pushed aside, which is terrible.
Yeah.
We got into this to build this thing over here.
Right.
So we sold the company. Good outcome. Went great.
Can we say numbers or no? Is it?
Nah, I don't want to talk about numbers. It was good. I mean, good outcome. Okay. Yeah. And so that was great. And I think the most important part was we pushed almost everything we made into more real estate.
That's
so we didn't go out
awesome.
and go buy a car or something. We bought the one thing that Nate and I bought. We bought season ticket holding licenses to the Eagles.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I do believe, when you have a huge win, you're allowed, to...
You gotta splurge a little bit.
Yeah, but that was it. And other than that, we then basically pushed everything else into real estate, which was just before this real big jump up in equity from real estate. So that was really positive. And it kind of segues into our next belief, which was we were like, okay, we've kind of moved on from management. What's our next phase in real estate? And so we knew two things. We knew we wanted to keep investing, and we knew we wanted to start another business. And so on the investing side, we kind of made that jump first. We had this fundamental idea of what if we were to buy, because you remember, these C-class housing, the tax sales, man, the values have really gone up.
Yeah,
I mean,
completely.
there's still value to be had. I mean, I'm sure you guys are making tons of money in C-class.
We're
trying to.
We're getting there.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, there's money to be made. But how we used to buy it off the MLS and tax sales and stuff, it wasn't there anymore. The at least how we saw the equity.
Gotcha.
And so what we decided to kind of pivot to was like what I call like iconic properties, timeless, things that I want to own in 20 years.
Yeah.
That I feel like, man, these things are they just don't.
It's
come
just a
around
good
again.
piece of real estate to own.
Yeah. And so high acreage,
right?
Usually in a really awesome location.
Super unique.
Yeah.
Based off of the location of these properties? Or is it kind of more about like the actual property itself?
Everything.
Everything.
Like a place that you would go to enjoy an amazing 50th anniversary.
It's like
for
a
your
5-star
grandparents.
Airbnbs.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it could be a short-term rental. It could be a resort.
Yeah.
But my business partner, both Nate and I, we bought our first ones in 2019.
Okay.
And learned a lot through that process. It's been a great investment.
Yeah.
And
where were those located?
on the Eastern Shore in Maryland, so Chesapeake Bay.
Yep.
Rock Hall is the town. And his was in Chesapeake City. And just kind of started learning about the Chesapeake Bay. And then that led to what is now our craziest investment, which is we bought this winery, which is like...
well, let's dive into it.
Yeah.
Clear out the blue.
Yeah. So what happened was, it's just on this... I do believe, like, you really start getting somewhere in real estate if you can have here's what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if someone says, you got to go back to where I started, like, what do you do in real estate, right?
I don't know.
If you have an answer... And that answer is kind of correlated with what you're trying to do, and you're kind of doing it over and over again. You almost start you get better at it. You start getting a brand. People you start becoming known as the person who buys blank or does blank.
Yeah.
And so we bought our first ones of these, and I was like, man, this is interesting. And so I was driving through Chesapeake City about once a quarter, and this amazing winery was there, but it was like just unutilized.
Yeah.
I went there for Mother's Day with my mom, and there was like nobody there. Yeah. And it was like, the crab weed is like going across. I was like, what's going on?
It's like prime piece of real estate.
Yeah, it's overlooking the water, 400 acres.
400?
Yeah, just this
That's
huge
crazy.
farm. Yeah, huge farm.
That's giant.
Oh my
And a mile of waterfront property. And so, anyways, we got to know the owners and said, hey, we'd love to check out the property. One of my friends managed this kind of service-based hospitality type stuff.
Yeah.
And so texted him and said, hey, I see this in the market. My wife actually saw it. They want to sell.
Yeah.
Texted him, and he was really on the button, said, hey, I got an appointment. We'll go see it Tuesday. So we go walk it. And I'll never forget the broker said, don't even try to get seller financing. Don't even ask.
Yep.
And I was like, come on. Like, these guys, I can tell the owners have money.
Yeah.
They'll be interested in this. And so we walked the property, and it was like, this is an amazing piece of property.
Yeah.
But I was like, man, this is the kind of thing, having seller financing really helps.
Yeah, of course.
Interest rates are a little higher. It's be hard to get a bank loan.
Yeah.
Yep.
So everybody else leaves, and I'm sitting there just with the owner. And I was like, all right, time to establish some rapport. I saw he went to the University of Virginia, which is right where I went.
Perfect.
And so I say, hey, so I actually went to UVA, like you went to UVA.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, yeah. And I was like, did you like it there? And he's like, yeah, till I got kicked out. And I was like, shoot.
Yeah.
But anyway, we started talking some more. Look,
Right.
no matter who someone is, you can get to know them. If you listen, you understand where they're coming from. So we talked some more. Finally, after a while, just him and I talking, I was like, hey, man, look, would you leave some money in this deal? And sure enough, he was like, yeah, I mean, why not? That would make total sense. Which was wild. I mean, here we have a broker. It's a good lesson,
Yeah.
I have a broker telling me, don't even ask about seller financing.
Yeah.
And sure enough,
He's completely open to it.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I
So
wonder what made the broker say that to you.
I don't know. I mean, the broker would probably say the seller maybe told him that or something.
Yeah.
Maybe the seller just wasn't comfortable enough yet with someone.
Yeah. Maybe he just didn't pitch it properly.
Yeah.
So the moral is always make that offer no matter what.
Well, yeah, I think it's just listen.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, what's the worst the guy would have said? Like,
Yeah.
the
literally.
worst the guy says is not interested.
Yeah.
And then I would have asked why.
Right, of course.
Because
Dive
who knows?
deeper.
I mean, seller financing, maybe the guy didn't even know what seller financing meant.
Yeah.
I mean,
true.
there can be a whole bunch of ways of putting together a seller note. What's it backed by? How long is it? What are the terms? So, I mean, maybe he thought that meant the entire purchase price was going to be a seller note. No, that wasn't what I was suggesting.
Right. Yeah.
In this case, we ended up with about a third the purchase price being a seller note.
Nice.
It's
That helps out tremendously.
Yeah, highly valuable. And I mean,
What'd they have it listed for?
so it was listed for $12 million.
Billion?
$12 million. Oh, yeah.
It did sound like you said billion.
No. Yeah. So,
12 million.
yeah, $12 billion. That would be
That'd be insane.
That's an expensive property.
yeah. Now, so listed for $12 million, and we ended up buying it for $9 million.
Okay.
And we got about a third of that in a seller note.
Yep.
And then about another third in a bank loan, a little bit more than a third in a bank loan.
Yeah.
And then we did raise some money from private investors to help kind of like put it all together.
I heard you had some competition on this deal as well, right?
We did. That's a loaded question. I feel like you, so we, when we got down to negotiating, put an offer in, it was actually verbally accepted. Not accepted, but we were heading that direction.
Gotcha.
And just at the last minute, broker calls and says, I got bad news for you. Another offer came in $500K higher than your price. And I was like, $500K higher? That's not good. He says, and it's all cash.
Ooh.
Oh, cash. That's like two problems, right? Problem one is a higher offer, like by significantly.
Yeah.
Second problem is all cash. I was like, oh, man.
I can't do all cash.
Yeah. And I can't do, I don't want to spend any more money.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm not giving up. And he said, okay, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
I said, I don't know. So I called my business partner and I said, how can we get around this? And I said, you know what? The person says all cash.
Yeah.
But are they really spending $9 to $10 million? Like, do they have $9 to $10 million in cash in a piggy bank over here?
Yeah.
I'm skeptical.
Right.
And two, the biggest problem with these deals is, are you going to actually close?
Right.
Yeah.
And so I just said, I am 100% convinced I'm going to close. And so I said, I will write a non-refundable deposit to prove I'm going to close.
Risky.
And yeah, it is risky. We're going to take a chance here. But the broker, I called the broker back on, and he said, you know what, that's a really interesting offer. Even though you're not changing the rest of your terms.
Right.
How
So you
high
still
was-
came up with the same purchase price.
Yeah, it didn't change it.
So how high was your deposit then?
I mean, I would say like $100K.
Okay.
Which was
so that's risky.
Yeah. I didn't. Yeah, I told my wife, and she was like, "Oh gosh," because it was my money.
At first stressed.
Yeah, she was like, "What are you doing, Chad?"
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt like, right. One of the things in real estate is asymmetric risks. It's a term you hear sometimes.
Okay.
Which is like, what you're trying to do is you're trying to take a risk that has way more upside than downside.
Gotcha.
Right. And so in this case, while this was a lot of money and a big risk.
Yeah.
I felt like we were buying an asset that could sort of change our lives, and we were going to hold for 20 years. And I felt really confident that we'd figure this thing out over the next. And look, a property like this, this isn't like you buy something, you put some paint on it, you fix some flooring, and now you flip it the next day, right? This is like you're going to own it for a couple decades.
Yeah.
And so I felt like when we had that approach, it actually didn't feel that risky. It actually felt like we can figure this out. And, we had enough people kind of on our side.
Gotcha.
And enough banks that knew our story.
Okay.
That, I felt like the risk maybe wasn't as high as what it seemed like. And then the upside was just massive.
Yeah, you're just able to mitigate that risk a little bit.
Yeah.
So the risk for me, just in my head, like as you're explaining this, is you've never owned a winery.
No, I don't even like wine.
So how'd you get the bank to trust you?
Not necessarily that. Oh, sorry, we'll get to that. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Not necessarily that, but like, did you have any mentors in the wine industry, or were you just like, I'm going to figure it out?
Yeah. Yeah. So my business partner on this one, we brought in someone who actually already owned a winery.
Okay.
And had some background there. And also, maybe more important, owned a couple like hospitality properties.
Gotcha.
And so, by the way, I pretty well don't own anything myself anymore. Like everything I've done, I try to own with someone else.
Yeah.
And oftentimes a couple people. And, look, I'd much rather give up some equity in exchange for bringing on someone whose experience I can leverage.
Right.
That's maybe different than mine.
Gotcha.
So,
and also, like you said, like this isn't a quick turnaround. Like it takes time for these things, like the vines to grow and the grapes to blossom and
well,
to
it was
create
already
the wine.
a functioning winery.
Oh, okay.
That was good. Yeah. So,
Gotcha.
the winery was not bad, and the
thinking,
buildings were beautiful.
I'm just thinking how you're going to pay these, your mortgage and your
the interest payments.
Yeah. So in this case, what we did was we raised a bunch of equity from private investors,
right?
Who then they get returns on this. By the way, they get not only returns, they also get equity in the project.
Oh, so a syndication, basically.
Yeah, we syndicated it.
Yep.
And
free wine.
Yeah, well, we get free wine, but we get perks to our investors.
Gotcha.
And but yeah, our strategy here was we'll give up both. I'll give up equity to other partners to come in, and other investors in exchange for owning this like truly iconic, generational property.
I'd love to come check it out sometime.
Yeah, no, you're all invited. It's called Bohemia Manor Farm.
Bohemian. Okay.
So it's in Chesapeake City.
Yeah.
And look, people check it out and they're just like, Chad, I can't believe you guys bought this. This is, it's like really stunning.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it was, when you buy stuff, things can be distressed not because of the real estate. Mm-hmm. Sometimes things are distressed because the business plan was wrong.
Okay.
In this case, what they were trying to do and how they were trying to do it was wrong. Yeah. But the actual real estate and the buildings were in great shape. So it's kind of a good lesson. It's like something's not always distressed just because the walls are caving in.
Yeah. Right. So kind of go along with that, like in wholesaling per se, it's like a lot of driving for dollars. I mean, you're only looking for those distressed properties, but a lot of the times when we run into some of these discounted deals where we're able to either wholesale or buy and hold or flip or whatever the circumstances may be, sometimes the property's in decent condition. It's just whatever distressed situation that the homeowner's in. So it kind of goes along with that. It's like whether it's financially or they're going through a divorce.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times,
so many other factors that play into it.
Maybe have some kind of health thing. In this case, the owners kind of wanted to move quick.
Yeah.
So, all sorts of things can lead to, like, distressed is not always just the property.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And then just the last thing to kind of finish our story out. So now like, okay, that's what you're doing on the investing side. Now we own on the business side. We were like, okay, we got our property management. What are we going to do next? And this is like the most bizarre thing. I can't believe we did this. So last summer, we're like, all right, we want to own a business that investors can use.
Yep.
And so we made a list of all the 50 companies that investors use, like everything.
Yeah.
Plumber.
Oh, yeah.
Real estate agent, like the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so first what we did was we actually publicized that list. Here are the vendors that we use. It's still available. So if you go to realestatehackers.com, you'll see who we use,
right.
Which is like crazy. No one puts their contractor list online.
Yeah.
But we decided to because that'd be fun. And so that's online. But then as we were going through it, Nate was like, we need a painting company. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, we don't know any painting companies. Which is kind of crazy. Like, how'd you run a management company of 5,000 units and never have a painting company?
Yeah.
But we always had a guy here and a guy there.
He's got a guy.
Yeah. But it's like not super scalable. And so one day Nate was like, hey, this is kind of like a theme here. He always does this. He's like, we're going to start a painting company.
Yeah. Next day, it's all set up.
Yeah, I was like a painting
Sent to the
company.
domain overnight.
Yeah, like I mean, look, we've done a lot in real estate. We just bought a winery. We're doing like some crazier and crazier things. We built tech. I mean, a painting company seems like anti-tech, right? It's like the most
Complete opposite.
Yeah,
Full labor intensive.
and but it's wild. We now have 10 painters, and it's growing like crazy.
Yeah.
And some of the largest management companies and flippers use it. And the reason it was so interesting was, you think about it, most painting companies, really all the painting companies, they want to service homeowner-occupied properties.
Yeah.
And investors, when they use a painting company, it's really a painter. It's a guy.
Yeah.
It's Joe. It's
Right.
Jimmy. It's a guy.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but not reliable. And there's no transparency on pricing. So we said, hey, what if we make transparent pricing, really simple pricing, based on the square footage of the property? Well, you'll always know what it'll be.
Yeah.
And we guarantee we'll be out there in 3 days. And we guarantee quality. And you can book it online.
Right.
So
Super simple.
Yeah, super simple. And golly, it's growing like crazy.
Wow.
So now, so Cover It Painting is our painting company's name. So it's wild, man. I think, there's so many lessons I've learned, but one of them is like, sometimes some of those, you can build a lot of wealth sometimes by not doing sexy stuff.
Yeah.
Sweaty startups is kind of one of the terms. It's like, sometimes these things are just grinding away and finding a need out there. You can
That'd be
create
a
some
great
real
name
wealth.
for a podcast. Sweaty Startup.
It is a name. It is a podcast.
No way.
Yeah. So it's fun. You should check it out. Yeah, it's
check it out.
it's actually this guy who started a very boring. He like moved stuff for colleges, and then he started doing storage units.
Okay.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't think he started the name. But yeah, it's a good podcast, and
That's funny. I don't know.
I recommend it. Sweaty Startups.
Yeah, you said it. I was like, that should definitely.
Yeah, if you're into this idea of building a company that's not sexy.
Yeah. Yep.
You're not trying to necessarily go to Mars, but there's a lot of money to be made at, and you're competing against people who like painters.
Yeah.
They have no tech background.
Yeah.
They
They
don't
can just blow them out the water.
Right, they don't understand search advertising, and they don't understand partnerships, and so that's what's been really good for us.
Now, what's a day in the life of Chad?
Yeah, man. Gosh, it's crazy. Every day is different.
Yeah.
A day in the life. Look, I spent a lot of time trying to meet interesting people. Honestly, I know you guys have been really, really good. I can tell you guys are going to be super successful.
Appreciate that.
I think like when you meet, there's this book called Blink. I don't know if you guys have read it.
I haven't,
All right.
no.
Well, that should be on your list somewhere. Blink.
right.
Okay.
But the concept behind Blink is when you've seen stuff over and over and over again, you start to be able to like very quickly say like, hey, this is interesting.
Yeah.
If you were evaluating art, that you can pick up something that's maybe not real art quicker, like a fake art, because you've seen so much art. You get it quicker. That's the theory.
Okay.
So I think like one advantage of me going to all these meetups and meeting all these people, you start to kind of figure out like what are some things that people that are going to be successful in real estate
Have in common.
have in common, right? And it's not what you think. It's not,
You should read
it's
the
not
book.
age, right? It's not I don't know. It's not wealth. It's not where they came from.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. There's like I'm not, and one of them is like, are they scrappy? For sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are they scrappy? Are they like hardworking? Because you're gonna have to work hard.
Right.
Do I sense they can like solve a problem that they've never seen before quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's more, but as you start to see these things, when I meet those kinds of people, I'm like, hey, I want to spend more time with these people. And so so I asked like day in the life.
Yeah.
One of the big things I do is I go find where groups of people are hanging out.
Yeah.
Either online or in person. And then I try to find these people that I think like, man, they're doing something interesting. And then I try to find more time to spend with them.
Yeah.
Either I will invite them on my podcast, or I'll grab a lunch with them. But it's like, man, they're doing something interesting. And then it's like, how can I build that relationship and go deeper with them? And what I'm really trying to do, I'm not trying to get to know like 10,000 people.
Right.
I think, look, 30, 40 people who I like am big believers in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's done a lot for me, is like go really deep with those people.
Right.
And see how I can help them. And I'll do anything for these people. Like on a dime, on a Saturday night, 8 o'clock, someone texts me, I'm texting them back.
Yeah.
They need an intro to a banker, or they have a problem, or what would I do in this situation? Or, somebody the other day was like, hey, can you send me your lease? I sent our lease over. We're like
Just helping out.
yeah, and I think those things add up over time.
No, absolutely. Just building those good relationships because at the end of the day, they're going to pay you back somehow. And not that you're necessarily expecting that in any kind of way. You just want to help them out.
Yeah, I mean, what we're really trying to do is just build trust. If we can build trust that, like, when someone wants something, we're here for you.
Yeah.
You can count on us.
Yeah.
That goes a long way. So I do a lot of that. I still do a lot of problem solving.
Yeah.
So a story I told the other day at a meetup, I don't know if you guys were there, but it was like the electric went out in one of our units in our office building.
Okay.
And someone's like, what's going on here, Chad? And so I was like, I don't know. I went over to the panel, breaker's not tripped. Everything looks fine there. Mm-hmm. And it turns out a homeless person had broken into this side 4-foot by 6-foot compartment where a bunch of the electric meters were. And when I say broke in, like, he had made it his home. Like, I mean, he had cell phone chargers hooked up. He had a washer and dryer hookup situation. He had a toaster. I mean, he had moved in.
Yeah. So a 4x6 electric.
Yeah. And at some point he had, I don't know, I guess he had accidentally bumped into one of the electric panels in that room.
Set it off and
it stopped working. But my point is, even to this day, a lot of it's like problem solving. In that case, it was like, what do you do? And, in that case, it was keep finding enough electric equipment to figure out what's going on here. It turns out that was the answer. It was a homeless person that broken in. So so it's a lot of problem solving. It's a lot of trying to meet and spend time with really high quality people. Mm-hmm. Then now it's some of these bigger projects we have. I spend a lot of time actually on the project. So I head down to our winery about once a week, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And
spend a lot of time with family these days?
Yeah. So my daughter's 7.
Okay.
She's about to turn 8. And so so that's exciting. I have a 2-year-old son. I mean, the 2-year-old, he's still kind of figuring out what's going on. But so as our kids get older, I definitely spend a lot more time with them.
Nice.
And that's kind of changed my life because when I was younger, I really put in the hours. So like I wouldn't be home at night 3 nights a week. Yeah. Whereas now I try to limit to like 1 night a week, not be home. Right. Try to get home for like to put them in bed, which is important to me.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah. And,
go ahead.
Well, I know we're coming to a close, but did you have something?
Not really. I just want to say we got to have you back here.
Yeah. This is fun.
There's like so much more that I know we can dive into and like just go deeper on.
Yeah.
But it's amazing for you to be able to give like a good gist of like who you are, how successful you've been, really just the raw and gritty of like.
Yeah. And the one thing I didn't mention, but I think it's like really important to me is, man, I feel like with social media, and I was telling you guys this before we were talking, is like people think it's like the slope is up and to the right. And that everything's perfect, and that's not the reality. And even today, a lot of this was like the greatest hits, but there were some huge moments along the way. Where I mean, even to this day, I mean, even this week, we're going, things come up, and I'm like, this is tricky.
Yeah.
Like, should we buy this? How do we handle this?
Do you want to mention that tax sale? Just
we had an issue with the tax sale. It's like, dude, tax sales are tricky, and I'll actually tell a better tax sale story.
Okay.
We were walking. This one I'll never forget. We were walking tax sale properties, and they, you kind of trying to figure out where you get in, and these things are grimy. Yeah. Have you guys ever been in a tax sale property?
No, but we've been in really bad properties.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, one of those where you can feel you can see the bugs are crawling up on you. And you're like, what am I doing?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Right. You're kind of like,
it's like life threatening. Some of them.
Yeah. You're like, man, I feel like I've like gotten to a point in life where I'm like, I don't still need to be going in buildings where there's like things crawling on me.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget. I was like, I'm leaning over the edge of like a wall. I'm trying to look in. And I'm looking over. And I'm like, up, and all of a sudden, this Doberman pincher comes out of nowhere. And I'm inches from, I wouldn't even have a nose anymore. I mean, just, up on there. And I come flying back. And I'll never forget, Nate was behind me. And Nate's like, screw this, we're out of here. We're not doing this anymore. And I mean, my heart,
fed up.
My heart is racing. And the dog is just, inches away.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait,
so this is a vacant property that this dog is just living in?
Who knows?
Okay.
Who knows? Is it vacant?
Is there a squatter?
Is there a squatter? Is there a homeless person? Who knows? Most of these things, who knows? And I remember going home that night. I remember driving home. I was thinking to myself, like, what am I doing?
Why am I still doing
this? Start
this?
rethinking life.
Like, I almost didn't have a nostril anymore. Like, and I'm not kidding. This was a scary, scary dog.
That's funny. That's the dog we want.
Yeah, we're both gonna get a Doberman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you should get one, but train it appropriately.
Yeah.
But and I'm not anti-dogs. I like dogs.
Yeah.
But the point was, I was like, and I think everyone out there, maybe it's today, maybe it's yesterday, maybe it's a week ago, maybe it's going to be in a week. But those moments where you go, and it's like, what am I doing?
Why am I still out here?
Yeah, why am I out here? Why am I doing this? This sucks. This is not my dream.
Yeah.
You know, Chad has everything figured out. And, you know, maybe you remember that story when my nose almost came out of my face. And, you know, that's just one story. There's lots. And I feel like we go through these things every couple months.
Of course.
But it's like, you know, I would just encourage people to know that real estate is not up and to the right.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone's success story is. I think sometimes social media feels like it's up and to the right because you share the wins.
Yeah.
But you don't see those moments where you're like, oh man, that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
You know, that the reality of winning is picking yourself up out of that and, you know, doggone it, going into the next property.
Right.
And not being scared of losing your nose.
No, absolutely.
You know, or whatever it is. Or picking yourself up when that wholesale deal doesn't go your way. Or
Right. That's one thing about our podcast is we're like trying to be as transparent as possible with the audience. So we've had 2 podcasts now where we pretty much did a deep dive on our finances, like just
awesome.
to expose like, oh, we're fucking broke, by the way. Like we have $0 to, you know, because like you said, like social media really is this glorified image of you see other, I don't know necessarily 23-year-olds, but you know, younger guys or girls who look extremely successful because they own all these properties. You're like, oh, these people are rich. They're getting all the girls, guys, whatever the situation may be. Real life, it's like, oh no, my bank account's probably way lower than you guys working at McDonald's right now.
Yeah. I mean,
You see the amount of debt I got.
No, I mean, up until, even a couple of years ago, there were times when we would go all in to buy something.
Yeah.
And I would like tell my wife or my girlfriend before, I was like, no paying any bills here for a week. You know, like, and she'd be like, no paying bills, like, you know, she's like, I don't know, like you're like 4 years into this and we have a bunch of properties and like you're making money and this and that. Like, why are we not paying bills this week? I was like, well, you don't quite understand. We just bought a very expensive property and like the bank account doesn't have a lot of money in it right now.
Right.
You know, and so I think it's, you know, it's okay being comfortable realizing that it's actually a long game. And part of that is knowing how to like kind of get off the floor and go through some of those moments where you're like, man, this is not great.
Yeah, I mean, there's times where we're like, I don't know how we're going to get through this next week.
Yeah.
And somehow we figure it out every time, and it just keeps going. We're literally at that point right now. Like, this one's actually like a really scary one.
Or you have a friend who's like, you know, I remember I had highlights where it's like, I had friends who'd be like, I'd be like out at a meetup, you know, in Reading, Pennsylvania, you know, shaking hands with random people. And I'd be getting a text and my friend would be like, hey man, I'm out at the bar, like you coming, you join us? I'd be like, nah, like I'm learning about like what a self-directed IRA is. You know, and he'd be like, why are you doing that? You know, like we're having a great night and the club's bouncing. And I'd be like, this club ain't bouncing. You know, I'm with a bunch of old people. Like, yeah, it ain't any, like this is not quite what I envisioned.
Yeah, it's a long game.
Yeah, it is a long game. I think, you know, the funny thing, though, is, you know, if you play the game right and you do, if you're always thinking a decade out, long and after a while, you know, actually you start seeing some of the benefits from that.
Yeah.
Good things start happening.
Or you start acquiring wineries and
Next thing you know, you're
properties.
drinking wine for free and you're like,
There you go.
I still don't really understand wine, by the way. Our winemaker's like, you know, we did that wine tasting and he was like, can you taste the oak? I was like, no, I can't taste the oak. It tastes like wine.
He's like, forget Chad.
Yeah. So you can't take the tax sale out of someone sometimes. It's still the same.
It's still in there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm not this like
Right.
high-fluting person, but
Well, Chad,
cool.
I really do
We
appreciate
truly
you.
appreciate you
Yeah.
coming on the podcast.
Great.
You know,
Hey, you guys are studs, by the way.
Thank
So
you.
don't.
appreciate
I'm
it.
like
Thank
really excited. I want you guys to come meet up in Lancaster, and
Yeah, I'd love to.
Your social media stuff's killing it, and
Thank you.
We're trying. The goal is to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year.
Yeah, so go
subscribe.
Where do we subscribe? YouTube.
YouTube,
Yeah.
but we're also on Spotify and Apple as well. So we're gonna make sure to leave Chad's information down below if you guys want to connect with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, truly appreciate
Check
it.
out his podcast.
Yeah.
Real Estate Hackers.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Real Estate Hackers, and Facebook. So
Nice. So what are like all the apps that you have, just if you want to shout out any? Because you are big into technology.
yeah, You know what? Yeah, it's not one app in particular. So I use Evernote like a beast, which is basically just a digital way of taking notes.
Yeah.
So I really love that. Look, I'm on Zello and I have a bunch of, alerts set up. But now I even got my wife on this. And my wife will text me and she'll be like, I got a Zello alert. It's pretty cool, So,
Nice.
But yes, it's not just like one. I mean, we use courtship to file evictions,
Yep.
But yeah, we just try to digitize everything we can do.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's amazing. All right. Awesome.
Well, we'll end it there, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.
See ya.